Imagine you're walking through a prehistoric forest 50,000 years ago. You're hungry. You spot a pile of sweet, overripe fruit beneath a tree. It smells delicious, so you eat it. But a few minutes later, something feels different. Your head feels light. The world seems strangely calm. You're laughing for no reason. Without realizing it, you've just had your first drink. But here's the shocking part. Humans didn't invent alcohol. Nature did. And according to scientists, our ancestors may have been drinking naturally fermented fruit millions of years before anyone brewed beer or wine. So, when did humans actually start drinking alcohol? The answer goes back much farther than you probably think. Long before humans walked the earth, long before the first villages, even before the Ice Age, alcohol already existed. Whenever fruit becomes overripe, natural yeast floating through the air begins eating its sugar. As the yeast feeds, it produces ethanol, the same type of alcohol found in beer and wine. This process is called fermentation, and it happens completely naturally. Today, elephants, monkeys, chimpanzees, birds, bats, and even insects sometimes eat fermented fruit. Some animals even appear intoxicated afterward. Scientists believe the same thing likely happened to our ancient ancestors. Instead of discovering alcohol in a laboratory, they simply found it lying on the forest floor. Nature had been brewing drinks for millions of years. This idea became famous because of evolutionary biologist Dr. Robert Dudley from the University of California, Berkeley. In 2000, he proposed something called the Drunken Monkey Hypothesis. His idea was surprisingly simple. Millions of years ago, ripe fruit was one of the richest energy sources available. Fermented fruit released tiny amounts of ethanol into the air. That smell actually helped primates locate fruit that contained the most sugar and calories. According to Dudley, animals that could detect this smell found food more efficiently. Over thousands of generations, natural selection favored individuals attracted to the scent of mild alcohol. Even more interesting, in 2014, genetic research led by Dr. Matthew Kerrigan showed that one of our ancestors evolved a much more effective version of an enzyme called ADH4, which helps break down ethanol. This mutation appeared around 10 million years ago, long before modern humans existed. In other words, our bodies may have been preparing to process alcohol millions of years before anyone ever brewed a drink. Here's where the story becomes even more interesting. Despite what many people believe, there is no scientific evidence that humans were intentionally brewing alcohol 50,000 years ago. Hunter-gatherers almost certainly encountered naturally fermented fruit or honey, but deliberately making alcoholic drinks required something much harder. You needed to understand fermentation. You needed containers, you needed stored food, and most importantly, you needed time to wait while yeast worked its invisible magic. Ice Age humans spent much of their lives moving from place to place following animals and seasonal plants. That lifestyle wasn't ideal for brewing. Instead, any alcohol they consumed probably came directly from nature itself. The earliest convincing evidence for humans intentionally making alcohol comes much later. In Raqefet Cave, Israel, archaeologists discovered stone mortars containing microscopic starch grains damaged in exactly the way expected from brewing. The site dates to around 13,000 years ago. The research, led by Dr. Li Liu from Stanford University and published in 2018, suggests the Natufian people were producing a beer-like drink. But this wasn't for parties. Scientists believe it was used during funeral ceremonies and important community rituals. That means alcohol may have begun as something sacred, not recreational. Even more remarkable evidence appeared in China. At the ancient site of Jiahu, researchers found pottery dating back about 9,000 years. Chemical analysis led by archaeological scientist Dr. Patrick McGovern, together with later work by Dr. Jiajing Wang and colleagues, revealed traces of fermented rice, honey, and fruit. This is one of the oldest known intentionally fermented beverages ever discovered. Imagine taking your first sip. No breweries, no bottles, no glasses, just a clay pot filled with a naturally fermented mixture made by some of the world's earliest farming communities. Alcohol had officially become a human invention. So, when did humans start drinking alcohol? The answer has two parts. If we're talking about accidentally drinking naturally fermented fruit, our ancestors, and even the primates before them, may have been doing that for millions of years. But if we're talking about intentionally making alcohol, the oldest convincing evidence appears around 13,000 years ago, with stronger chemical evidence from 9,000 years ago. In other words, alcohol wasn't invented overnight. It was a slow discovery that began in the forest long before cities, long before farming, and perhaps long before anyone realized they were changing human history with every sip. The next time you see fruit lying on the ground, remember this. Nature brewed the first drink. Humans simply learned the recipe. So, here's a question for you. If you accidentally discovered alcohol 50,000 years ago, would you have taken a second sip or never touched it again? Let me know your answer in the comments, and if you enjoy uncovering the hidden stories of ancient humanity, subscribe to the Mind Relic, because history is far stranger than most people realize.